Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today I'm going to be doing a video on how to apply to grad school and specifically for speech pathology. Sorry about that. I know how stressful applying to grad school could be because I just applied to grad school back in the fall. And for those of you who don't know or just started watching my videos, I'm going to be starting grad school at the end of August for speech pathology. So if you're in the speech major, I'm sure that's why you're watching this video. If you're maybe thinking of becoming a speech pathologist or you're in the process of applying. So I know how stressful it is and I know that it could be really competitive. If you're in the field, all your professors will tell you how you have to have a plan B, how you have to have a high GPA, you have to have this, you have to have that. So it can be really overwhelming. And I remember when I was applying, I was so stressed. So stressed. I was freaking out all the time. Everything had to be perfect. I had no idea what I was doing. You don't really have much help, so you're kind of all on your own. So I just wanted to make this video to help some of you who are in the process of applying or might be applying in the future and just kind of lay it out step by step on how I applied to grad school, and hopefully this could help some of you. So the first thing that I suggest doing is obviously researching the schools that you want to apply to. So research a bunch of schools in your area, or if you want to go away, research those schools, and then look at each school's specific requirements, because depending on the school there'll be different requirements. And once you've researched schools and you kind of have a rough idea of the schools you want to apply to, I would write down a list of all the schools that you want to apply to and each school's specific requirements. And I would do this probably, for me, all my applications were due February 1st. So I'm an overachiever and I'm a perfectionist. So I like to do everything super early, and I did all of this kind of in the summer months. I kind of really planned everything out. So that could be a little too early. I know I'm crazy, but it honestly will just take the stress off having all of that laid out on paper, everything you need to do, everything you need to know for each school. So once you know all the schools that you want to apply to, then I would start thinking about the GRE. The dreaded GRE. I hated the GRE so much, but you gotta take it. Most schools require it, so you gotta do what you gotta do. So for the GRE, I personally recommend just getting yourself a review book. I know people that spend money on tutors and things like that, and they kind of regretted it because the tutors are really expensive and sometimes it doesn't even help improve your score that much. I used the Manhattan Prep, the 5-lib review book, and that book has a bunch of practice problems for verbal reasoning, quantitative reasoning, and for the writing section of the test. And you basically do all the practice problems, and then in the back of the book, it has all the answers to the practice problems and it explains each problem and how to do it. So that was really helpful for me. But I just want to tell you guys now that if you have a really strong or a pretty strong application, they don't really, from what I've heard and just from my experience, because I did not do that well on the GREs at all, and I still got into pretty much every school that I applied to. They don't really care about the GRE that much. It's more of just a formality. So if you just, study a little bit, don't go crazy, honestly. Don't stress yourself out too much about it, because I stressed myself out so much about it, and now I really do regret stressing so much about it because it really in the end didn't matter. So just really try your best. Definitely look over like what you need to do and what you need to know, but don't spend days on days and hours on hours of studying and stressing. That's just my recommendation. But if you do have a lower GPA, maybe not as strong of an application, then maybe you should try to study a lot and get that GRE score up so that could be a strong point of your application. So you sign up for the GRE online on ets.org or .com. So ETS, that's all I know. Just type it into Google and you should find it. It cost around $205 when I signed up. I would recommend taking it. I took it September 22nd. I'm a creep. I don't know how you remember that specific date, but I took it September 22nd. I would recommend taking it anywhere from September, October, early November, because then you give yourself time to retake it if you really do want to retake it. And then once you take the GRE, there's an option at the end of the test, like right when you finish, to send your scores to schools I think you could send it up to 4 schools, and I believe it's completely free if you choose to do it right after the exam. I did not do that because I just didn't think I did well, and I didn't want to just get locked into sending it to schools in case I did want to retake it, but you can do that if you want to. And if you don't choose to do that, basically at some point you do have to go on ETS and send your GRE scores to each specific school that you apply to, and I think it's $27 per school. But yeah, it's super easy. You just go on ETS, and I think they have an option like to send to schools, and it has like a code for each school. You just have to find out each school's GRE code, which it should say it on the application requirements, and then you just type that in, you pay your money, and then it's all good. And so that part's really easy to send your scores. While you're worrying about the GRE, you also got to worry about letters of recommendation. I was so stressed about this too because I just didn't feel like I had professors that would want to write me a letter of rec. I don't know why. I was just not confident. I was like, oh my god, no one's going to want to write me a letter of recommendation. I'm not good enough, yada yada yada. So it was definitely a stressful part of the application process for me. And for most schools, you need 3 letters of recommendation from professors. So I would recommend asking for letters of rec early, probably around October to November, just so you give the professor a lot of time, which they'll be more inclined to say yes if they feel that they have a lot of time. And just in case they might say no, you'll have time to think of someone else to ask. And when you're asking, you could ask in person or you could ask through email. I found that most professors don't care if you ask through email. It's actually easier if you do ask through email. One of my professors actually said she prefers when students ask through email. That way she doesn't feel pressured to say yes, or she doesn't feel on the spot. So if you just want to email your professors, a very kind and professional email to ask for a letter of rec, that would be fine. Or you could ask in person. I asked one of my professors in person, and it was a little nerve-wracking, but she was happy to do it. Most of the professors are so happy to write you a letter of rec. They're actually honored and they feel flattered that you would want them to write you a letter of rec. So don't be afraid, and like I said, they're usually happy to help you and really want to write a letter of recommendation for you. And once they do agree to write you a letter of recommendation, usually through the school's application, whether you do it on CIDCAS, which is the Universal Application for Speech Pathology, or if you do it on the school's individual application, there will usually be like an email or a button that you can click to send the professors an invite to write you a letter of recommendation. So you'll just type in the professor's email, and then it'll go to them, and then it'll give them the instructions on what to do, on how to send the letter of recommendation to the school. Alright, so now we are on to the personal essay that every school requires. So each school is going to want a specific type of essay. So I used to think when I was applying that every school asked for the same prompt, and I was like, oh, no big deal, I'll just have to write one essay, it'll take me like a day. But in my case, I applied to 5 schools, and each school wanted or requested a specific prompt, so a different essay. So that really kind of sucked because I had to write 5 different essays, but all the essays are like 1 to 2 pages. They do not want you to write a lot. The essay is definitely an important part of your application, but I wouldn't put so much pressure on it because then that's just gonna give you writer's block. Because I was putting so much pressure on my essays. I was like, oh, it has to be perfect. This is gonna be their impression of me. And then it just caused me not to even know what the hell to write at all. So I would just approach it from a calm standpoint. Just be yourself in the essay and just really just write what your instincts tell you, and I think you'll be fine. And I would just have maybe 1 or 2 people proofread it just for grammatical errors, and then once you wrote it and you have had some people proofread it and you really feel good about it, then that's it. So the essays were annoying, but they weren't the worst. You'll be fine. It really wasn't bad. Alright, so then another part of the application is the resume. So not all schools require a resume, but I think most do, and even if some of them didn't require it but it was optional, I would still send one in just because it just looks good and it will help them see you know, what you've been up to the past 4 years in college. So for the resume, when I was applying, I had no idea how to write a resume, and I was so lost, but all you have to do is just look up a resume template online and basically just follow that exactly. So it's really not that hard. I'll tell you guys the way I broke up my resume. I had 4 different categories in mind. So my first category was academic experience. And then under that, I just put all of the experience I had throughout college that I thought would stand out on my resume. So I happened to be able to do clinic in undergrad, so I put that on there. I was also able to participate in some research, so I also put that on there. And I also put my observation hours. So the next category I had on my resume was extracurricular activities and volunteer work. So that one's kind of self-explanatory. I put NISHLA, which I'm sure a lot of you are probably in. I did some volunteer work at a nursing home that previous summer, so I just put that on there, and I think that's actually all I had under that category. So you don't have to have like 10 things under each category. I think mine was like a page and a half long. So the next category I had was honors. So under that category I was in an honor society. I don't even remember what it was called. It was very weirdly pronounced. It was like some crazy Greek name, but I put that on there. And then I also put that I was on the dean's list. So anything like that, any honors, honor society, if you've been on the dean's list at your school, things like that, you could put under that category. And then lastly, I had an employment category. So I just put my employment experience throughout college. I don't know if this category is required, but I just figured I'll just throw it on there and whatever. It was the last category on there, so if they cared, they cared. If they didn't, they didn't. I would put the most relevant categories first, so that's why I put academic experience first, and then as you go down, put the least relevant categories. So yeah, the resume, just look up a template and just write what you did and you're all good. So you have to send in your official transcripts. So that means that you're gonna have to go to your current school and probably pay a fee in order to send your transcripts out to each school you're applying to. So I feel like I'm just a broken record, but do this early. Don't wait a week before the application is due, because things happen and stuff gets lost in the mail, the school loses your transcript request form, or they are really backed up so they don't send it out right away. And I thought that this would be the easiest part of applying. For some reason, it stressed me out so much because some of my transcripts took like weeks to get sent to my schools. So I would just be very cautious of that and try to just do it early, at least like 3 weeks before the application is due. And then you should be fine, because if there is a problem, you can fix it and you'll get your the school will get your transcripts. I would also just call each school to confirm that they got your transcripts. Some schools on the application will say whether they got it or not, so you could just look right online on your application, but some schools don't do this, so I would just call those schools to make sure, because you don't want to have all your application material sent in and then have them say, oh sorry, we didn't get your transcript, so we're not considering you. Like, that would really suck. So just make sure that they all got your transcripts. So as I said before, CIDCAS is the universal application for speech pathology. So I'm sure a lot of you will have to be using it. So with CIDCAS, there's a portion of the application where you actually have to type in your own transcripts, and you could either, I think they give you the option to pay someone to do it, so you just pay CIDCAS like $60, I think it was, and then they'll do it for you, or you could just do it yourself. So I would just recommend doing it yourself, because it was really not hard at all. It took me like a half hour. All I did was I got an official transcript from my school and I just copied it word for word into CIDCAS, and like I said, it took me like a half hour. It really wasn't bad. And then with CIDCAS, say you're applying to like 3 or 4 schools on there, you don't send the transcripts to each individual school. You just send the transcript to CIDCAS. So there'll be a address on there somewhere. I don't remember exactly where, but it'll be the CIDCAS address, and that's where they want you to send your transcripts to. So if you are applying to schools on CIDCAS, do not send the transcripts to each individual school. Send it to CIDCAS themselves. Just an FYI, because I was so confused when I was applying. Alright, so really those are all the components of the application for speech pathology. Of course, your GPA is a huge part of the application as well, but at the point that you're applying, there's really not much you can do about your GPA. Your GPA is what it is, so I would just say throughout, your undergraduate years, just try your best in your classes and just try to get, the best GPA you can get, but your GPA isn't everything. Yes, they do really weigh on your GPA, but if you have a lower GPA and you have other strong aspects of your application, they will definitely consider you and you will definitely be able to get into school, I think. So just have confidence and trust in the process. Just one more warning I wanted to give about CIDCAS. I did not have a good experience with them, so I'm just giving you guys a warning. So with CIDCAS, it says in the fine print, this is depending on each school too, but once you send in all your application materials, it takes 3 to 4 weeks to verify your application. So that means that they verified your transcripts, they verified your GRE scores. I don't even know exactly what it means, but some of the schools want your application verified by the due date on the website. So say the school says, the application is due February 1st, and you send in all your materials and complete your application a week before February 1st, your application might not be verified or probably won't be verified in time for February 1st. So I would definitely look out for that. I didn't even see that, so I think I submitted my applications like 2 weeks early, and then I saw that and I was like, oh my god, and I freaked out and I called the school. I was Hofstra that this happened with, and they were like, well, yeah, we'd prefer if it was verified, but we will still look at it. So it really just depends on the school, but I would just be very careful of that depending on the school, because some of them are much stricter and won't even look at your application unless it's verified by the due date. Alright, so yeah, that's really all of the components of the grad application for speech pathology. I know how overwhelming it is, but once you're doing it and breaking everything down step by step, it really isn't that bad. Just leave yourself enough time for everything. Just take some deep breaths and just find ways to de-stress, and you will all be fine. Once the process is over, you'll be so grateful and so relieved. Once you start hearing that you got accepted into schools, it's such an exciting time and it'll all be so worth it. I wish everyone the best of luck who is thinking of applying to grad school. I think you'll all get in. I have confidence in all of you. Thank you so much for watching this video, and let me know if you guys want to see more speech related videos. Thank you again for watching. Bye guys!